Hey, good morning. Welcome back, church. You glad to be at church? It's been a good week, right? Okay, maybe hasn't. It's all right. It's all good. It has for me. It's been a good week. It's good to be here. I love being in church. I just love it. We are. I need a show of hands. I know you. I hate to raise your hands, but we're going to do it today anyway. Where are my risk takers in the room? Where are you? Let me see you. Hey, there's a few of us here in the room. Is that it? That's all we got? Okay, there's a couple, there's a few risk takers in there. I like to think that I am a risk taker. I'm pretty much down for anything, a little bit. I do have my limits, but I'm a risk taker. I scuba dive and that type of thing. I would jump out of an airplane if given the opportunity. But let me ask you, what's the biggest risk that you've ever taken in your life? Have you ever had, I don't know if you've ever had to ask yourself that question. I tried to think of mine. I'm not sure if I could think of a few. There's been a few. Maybe quitting my job and becoming a pastor. That was kind of risky a little bit. I felt that. But let me ask you, some of you, where are my non-risk takers? Okay, there you are. You are the people that order the same thing off the menu, aren't you? Yes. Your biggest risk is okay, I know because Cheryl's that way. She's like, oh, I'm going to order something different. And if it doesn't work out, this is going to be really bad. You panic. That's the biggest risk that you've taken so far. Are you the type of people that are you're cautious by nature? You want to see it on paper. You want to see how this works out. You want to see tell me how this is going to go out. Am I safe? Is things going to happen? Nothing's going to go bad. And then some of us are just that way. And the risk that we take sometimes is determined by what's at risk, right? There's levels of risk. Who has an aggressive approach with their 401k? Anybody? Okay, there's not as many risk takers. Okay, hey, there he is. I like it. Take it. Big risk comes what? Big reward, right? And so why is it that sometimes, and I think sometimes life can feel like a constant game of risk. We're evaluating this risk that, should I do this or shouldn't I do that? Or am I going to take that step? Am I going to risk it for the biscuit type of thing or not? And we're conditioned, especially in our culture and especially in America, for comfort. We like to be comfortable. We like for things to be safe. Anybody love change? Okay. Nobody here love change. We just love comfort. We love to be comfortable. We love when things are the same. We love when things are predictable. We love when we know what's going to happen. When I do this, I know this is going to happen. Some of you live very disciplined lives, and because of that level of control that we want to have in our life, and so we know the next move. We don't like living on faith, and to live in a way that God doesn't come through. Yeah, that was the question. Have you ever lived in such a way that if you've made such a decision that you're if God doesn't show up, if he does not come through for me in this is going to be really bad. I am completely and 100% reliant on him coming through with this. I've put myself out there, God, and I'm living in such a way that if you don't show up and make this is going to be really bad. And so how does this work in God? I know some of you take some risk. I saw some photos on Facebook. Some of you been to Holiday World. You've been to the water park. That's a risk that not even I'll take. Just everybody's juices. No, thanks. I can't do it. I know I say it all the time, but every time I see pictures of people at Holiday World, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure I can shake your hand at church. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm a little bit of a germaphobe, but it freaks me out. But here's the thing. Last week we kicked off this series called Multiply, and we just came to a whole summer series of talking about life change and what that looks like. And we expect that God will do life change around here. It's one of our core values. It's our mission statement that we exist to drive people into a relationship with Jesus, create life change through a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so last week, we kicked this series off, and I talked to you a little bit about the gift that God has given you. And we all have this gift. We all have a gift. God has planted it within our hearts. It's the gospel of Jesus Christ. But beyond that, Scripture tells us that he has equipped every one of us with something that we have to offer. And so the question is, what are you doing with that gift? How are you investing that? And it's not the size of our gift that matters. It's how we invest what we've been given to multiply his kingdom that truly counts. That is what matters. This gift that you have, it's not whether or not it's huge or small or big, or you've got this amazing talent, or you can play like Shane or one of the. It's not the magnitude of your gift. It's what you're doing with it and how you are investing that for the kingdom, and that's what really matters. And so, here's a question for you, just solid question for you to ask yourself this morning. Are you on a daily basis? Are your daily decisions based on your kingdom or on his kingdom? We talked a little bit last week about God's kingdom and that there is a kingdom that exists that is outside of our kingdom, and Jesus talked about it 80 times in the New Testament. He talked over and over and over about the kingdom of heaven is like, and then he would tell a story or a parable, and it was to illustrate what the kingdom of heaven was like, what his kingdom is like. So my question to you, if you had to evaluate yourself and the way you live your life, your decisions financially, your decisions relationally, your decisions with all of those things, are those kingdom-minded or are they me-minded? Are your decisions based on your kingdom or on his kingdom? Something to think about throughout the day today. Just know that God risked everything. There was this risk factor, and I think there's a risk factor that comes into play in our faith walk and our journey. Well, I'm willing to risk this, this, and this, but I'm not willing to risk this. I'm going to hold on to this, God. I'm going to keep control of this area of my life, and I don't really want to trust you with that because that's a little bit more risk than I'm willing to gamble. Whether that's your finances and tithing or whatever that is, you're holding on to a certain portion of that. Just know that God risked everything for you. John 3:16. We all can probably say it by heart. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall have everlasting life. He risked everything. He risked his one and only Son for us. And while we were sinners, God was willing to risk sending his one and only Son to die on a cross for our sins. So let me ask you the question. What is the greatest risk or investment that you have made into the kingdom of heaven? Have you made any this week? Has there been anything this week that you've said, you know what, I'm going to risk some of my time or some of my resources or some of this gift that God has clearly given me, and I'm going to invest that into his kingdom? Let me read the question again. Honest, just answer it to yourself. I'm not asking you to answer it out loud. What is the greatest risk or investment that you've taken recently for the kingdom of heaven? For his kingdom, not your kingdom. Let that sit there. We're in the second week of the series, and it's titled Multiply. And what we know is that we know that God is clearly a God of multiplication. He doesn't want to see things stagnant. He wants to multiply, especially his kingdom. He talked about it all the time. He wants to know his kingdom will grow, and it will. And here's the thing. He wants to know that his kingdom will grow, and the fact of the matter is it will. It'll grow. It's going to grow. Matthew chapter 16, verse 18 says this. Jesus talking to his disciples as they were walking into Jerusalem, as he was walking toward crucifixion, says this, "Now I say to you that you are Peter," which means rocks. He was given Peter a different name. "And upon this rock I will build my church, and all of the power of hell will not conquer it." The fact of the matter is, God established his kingdom at that point in time in history, and he basically said, there's not anything that's going to stop this. So the fact of the matter is, God will move his kingdom forward with or without us. He will move his kingdom forward with or without you. It's just a matter of whether or not you want to be part of it and you're willing to invest in it. So he prefers to do it with us. He wants to do it alongside us. But here's the thing, just like any other risk that we take in our life, we have to determine if the juice is worth the squeeze. You have to determine if me following and leaning into this church or leaning into service or leaning into giving or leaning into setting some standards and some morality inside my relationships, inside the dating thing, you have to determine whether you're leaning into that or you're not going to. let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like God is prompting you to do something and then you talk yourself out of it? Has anybody ever felt that? Like, I do that all the time. Like, I feel like God is, hey, I want you to do this. I feel like I need you to do this. I want you to do this. But then you talk yourselves out of it. And sometimes you think what he's telling you can't possibly be real. Like, that can't possibly be real. And so I got to thinking about that. Has anybody ever noticed, like, and some of you may not even know what this, but AI is getting out of hand. Has anybody ever noticed that? Okay, if you don't know what AI is, find a young person sitting next to you, because you're probably old. AI is artificial intelligence, and it's basically, I can't even describe it, but basically, if you don't know what AI is, it's artificial intelligence. Basically, computers are going to take us over and kill us. Pretty much it. They're going to grow legs and teach themselves how to, anyway, that it's getting out of hand. And I've been watching, you see it, you cannot believe just FYI, especially maybe some of the senior adults like myself, you can't believe everything that you see online, okay? So we're going to play a game this morning. It's called, Is It Real or Is It AI? Isn't that fun? Aren't you glad you came to church? All right, so here's the first one. I think we have a first video. He looks cute, doesn't he? Like you just want to wrestle him. Okay, who says that's a real video? Okay, we're doing good. That is AI. Okay, okay. Let's show a second one. Here's the second one. Okay, real or AI? Okay, let's look at the third one real quick. Who says real? Okay, you guys did pretty good, okay? Yeah, so sometimes you look at things and we see and we're like, oh, that's real. And then you're like, no way, that's not real. No, that's not real. That's AI. And so I think sometimes you ever feel like God is prompting you and it's hard to tell what he is saying is real or what is not real. And I think we've been on this journey as a church, and I've got to watch my time. We've been on this journey as a church that we are moving in a direction, whether you realize it or not. We spent some time with a consultant several years ago, or about a year and a half ago, and we have marked a clear path that we are moving on in this church from a church leadership perspective, and we are going to be investing in some things. And if you remember, I preached a message series, if you remember any that I preach, but I preached a message series at the beginning of the year called Onward, and we are looking forward, and I referenced a passage of scripture in that message series, and it's from the Old Testament book of Numbers, chapter 13. Now, let me catch you back up, and we're going to read a little bit of the story, but basically, these Israelites had been wandering around in the desert, and they had left Egypt, they had fled Egypt, captivity in Egypt. God had rescued them from Egypt, and the Israelites, God had promised to deliver them to the promised land, and he had promised to bring them to this place of where milk and honey flowed, and it was awesome, and they left Egypt, and they were headed for this place, and they quite literally got to the edge. I actually have a picture of it from a friend of mine that's actually been there and seen it, but they got to the edge of this mountain, and this land that God had promised was laid out ahead of them. And so Moses said, hey, we better send some spies in and check the place out. And if you remember the story in the Old Testament, you can read it. They sent 12 spies in, and all 12 of them came back after they had been in this land and spying. And here's what they said. Verse 27, chapter 13 of Numbers. It says, this was the report to Moses. We entered the land that you sent us to explore, and it indeed is a bountiful country, a land flowing with milk and honey. Here is the kind of fruit it produces. They had all this, they brought back samples. I love samples. But the people living there are powerful, and their large towns are large and fortified. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. But there were some of them that said, but there's giants there. Actually, 10 out of the 12 said, we can't go in there. We're gonna get our tail ends handed to us. Like, we cannot do that. But there were 2 out of the 12 that said this in verse 30. But Caleb tried to quiet the people as they stood before Moses. Let's go at once to take the land, he said. We can certainly conquer it. But the other men who explored the land with him disagreed. We can't go up against them. They are stronger than we are. And so they spread this bad report through the land among the Israelites. The land we traveled through and explored will devour anyone who goes up there, who goes to live there. All the people we saw were huge. We even saw giants there, the descendants of Anak. Next to them, this is interesting. I love this part. Next to them, we felt like grasshoppers. That sounds like AI. You know? You're walking into land, but these people were like, it is unreal. You're not going to believe it. These people are huge. We're going to get our tail ends kicked. We cannot do this. We felt like grasshoppers, and that's what they thought too. Here's the thing. In this life, if you want to live life to the fullest, and we want to at this church, we want to live up to God's glorious standard for this place, but I want it even more for you individually. In this life and in the life of the kingdom, there will always be two kinds of people. There will be those who say we can't, and then there will be those that say, let's go. We need let's go people here. I need even two. I need people that are going to go, you know what? That seems unreal. Let's go. Because we believe that God is going to do something through my stupid little gift that I have. We believe that God's going to use me. I believe that if I am faithful and I just stay saying yes and I wade into stuff that seems unreal and crazy and risky, that we say yes because greater the risk, greater the reward. And we see that unfold in Scripture over and over and over and over again. We often hear the we can't voices are louder than the let's go voices. And God may be asking you to do something that makes absolutely no sense. It seems unreal or impossible. The question is, which voice are you going to listen to? Are you going to listen to the we can't voice? Or are we going to go, let's go? I say let's go. Let's jump off the cliff together. Let's do it. I know. I'll clap too. Let's do it. Satan is the author of confusion. I want you to hear this. Because the we can't voices say, it sounds like, well, if I share my faith, people are going to make fun of me. Who cares? The we can't sounds, if I invite somebody to church, they may say no. If I choose to start a grow group and I don't know what I'm talking about, what then? The I can't say, it sounds like, what if I start paying tithe and then I can't pay my bills? Or what if I choose to honor God with my body and choose to wait till marriage and no one will love me? And what if I choose to live out my faith and out loud and work and school and I have no friends? What if the church, yeah, what if? There's always risk. There's always going to be risks. Those are all risks, but what if we started focusing and thinking like kingdom-minded people, like Caleb and Joshua? And we start thinking, what if we experience the blessing that he has for us because I choose to trust him and to meet our needs? What if people who we never thought would come to church start coming to church and find Jesus because we've been faithful? What if that happens? What if we find the man or woman that God has for you because you've decided to invest into a moral lifestyle? What if your finances suddenly become less of an issue because you choose to honor God first before anything else in your finances? What if my son doesn't play for the Cardinals? So what? He loves me and he loves Jesus. What if we started thinking kingdom-minded instead of our world-minded? God will make the juice worth the squeeze, I promise. Every investment we make or don't make will have eternal implications. Do you know that? Every investment that you choose not to make or you choose to make, however great or small, will have eternal consequences. There's eternal impact to every one of your risky decisions that you choose to make, especially when it comes to your faith and being obedient to a God that loves you enough to send you his only son. You ever know anybody that has a knack for investing? Like, I was pretty proud of I sold 4 used tires this week on Facebook Marketplace and made $275. I feel like I should have a podcast. Like, it was impressive. This is about as good as it gets for me. I was like, woo! Now, my brother Chris, everything, he's like, I think if I pull that weed blade of grass and throw it over here, and somebody's like, yeah, I'll pay you $1,000 for that. Like, there's just people that are like that, that just have that mindset and make money. But you have to risk it. And so I want to talk about a parable here that's pretty popular. You've heard it if you've been around the church at all. It's a parable of the talents. And it's actually found in Matthew chapter 25, which if you read the whole book of Matthew, or the whole chapter of Matthew 25, it can be a little scary, honestly. Because it's basically Jesus giving some insight on final judgment of our lives. You read it, I'm just warning you, go home and read Matthew chapter 25. It can be a little scary. I used to be scared about it. I'm not, and I'll tell you why now. But in this chapter, there's a couple stories. Jesus tells a couple stories. The first story is a story of the bridesmaids that have this oil in their lamp, and they're keeping the lamp, waiting for the bridegroom to return. Obviously, some correlation between Jesus coming back, because FYI, he is coming back. And so the second part of that is the story of a talents. And he tells a story. Jesus tells a story. And it's interesting how he starts the story. And so we're going to read not all of it, but part of it, most of it. You'll get the gist. Here's how the story goes. It starts in verse 14 of Matthew chapter 25. And I love how pay close attention to how Jesus actually starts this story. Here's what it starts. He starts with one word. Again, there it is. I just find that interesting that he starts with that word. Again, because you know why he's saying it again? Because he has said this before. Over and over and over and over. 80 times in the New Testament, Jesus said stuff like this. Because he was trying to give us a picture of what the kingdom of heaven is going to be like and what the kingdom of heaven is like, okay, that we lose sight of. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. So Jesus is basically going to say, hey, I want you to understand the kingdom of heaven, and so I'm going to tell you a story that might make sense to you, okay? Here's the story that he tells. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. Here's what he did, this man going on this journey. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, he gave 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last. And here's another important part that I underlined. And he dividing it in proportion to their abilities. In other words, God has given every single one of us sitting in a blue puffy chair this morning a gift. He has given you a talent proportionate to your abilities. He's not going to give you something that you're not capable of doing something with, okay? He's given you a gift proportionate to those. He then left on his trip. Now, long story, we're going to shorten it up a little bit. He comes back, and if you know the story, you know what happened. He goes to the 5-bag guy first, and he's like, hey, you got my silver? And the 5-bag guys was like, yep, I got it. I got 5 bags, and guess what? I took that 5 bags, and I invested it, and here's 10 back. Listen to the master's response in verse 21. The master was full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You hear that oftentimes at funerals, don't we? You're only going to hear that if you invest wisely. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Woohoo! Goes to the 2-bag guy. Same deal. 2-bag guy. Hey, I only had 2 bags, but here's what I did with it. I went out and invested it, made 2 bags more. Here's 4 bags back. Same identical response from the man that left. Well done, thy good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over your 2 bags. Then he went to the guy with the cell phone. No, just kidding. I couldn't resist. Whoever you are, I'm sorry. And he said, well done. No, I couldn't resist. All right. He goes to the last guy. Okay, the guy that had, the least amount of bags, okay? And he goes to him. Then the servant, verse 24, then the servant with one bag. He had one bag of silver. Not a lot, didn't have as much as the other people had. One bag of silver, and said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. Underline the key words. Say it with me. I was afraid. You wonder why we don't invest in the kingdom? Most times because you're chicken. You're yellow. You're chicken. You're afraid. I would lose your money and I hid it in the earth. Now, to me, as a banker, former banker, that seems reasonable, right? Like, I don't want to risk losing what he had. And we get so wrapped up in that. And so sometimes I kind of felt sorry for the one bag guy sometimes when I first read this. I was like, that seems, it's a reasonable thing, right? Like, hey, I want to protect your resource. But here's the thing. God isn't a God of protecting my resource. God is a God of its multiplication. He wants to multiply. So here was his response. Pay attention to this, really important. But the master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. You don't ever hear that one at funeral very often, do you? You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money at the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. In other words, you didn't do anything with it. You wasted what I gave you. End of the story, verse 29, and this is can be the scary part. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have abundance. Pay attention to that. We're going to come back to that. But those who do nothing, even with a little, have been taken away. Now throw these useless servant into outer darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And so we read this parable and we wonder, what am I supposed to do with that? How does that apply to your life in 2025 in Salem, Illinois, working where you work, making what you make, doing what you do with your family? And this isn't just about money, but coming in here each week. And I think that there are three things that I think, and we're going to hit them really quick. There are three things that I think we can walk away with. The first one is this, from this parable and from this message today. The kingdom matters most. That's the first thing. His kingdom matters more than your kingdom and my kingdom. Jesus said again, he's desperately trying to get us to understand the kingdom. There is something much bigger at work in Salem, Illinois, and in Salem Grace than we see happening. There is much bigger. God has so much more things that he wants to do with you that you have no earthly idea about. The kingdom is so much bigger and so far above any thought process that we could ever have. He wants us to start thinking in a kingdom mindset. What is this going to do to further his kingdom? How can if we would apply that to every circumstance in our life, I just wonder what kind of change we would see in our lives. The second thing is this: no one is worthless. We all have been giving according to our abilities. Each one of you are sitting on some kind of gift. I'm telling you, every one of us, every single person in here. God has equipped you something in your life for kingdom work. I don't know what it is, and you may have to do some work to find out what that is, but you have a gift. Some have been blessed with different gifts. It doesn't mean that what you have to offer is any far less. If you're sitting in a chair this morning, will you raise your hand? Okay, it's pretty much everybody, unless you're standing somewhere. Your chair was set up by two people. And oftentimes every week here, it's set up by one person. because we can't get enough people to say, hey, I'm willing to set up chairs. I'm not trying to guilt you or shame you, but this one person, these two people that set up chairs, they alternate. Some of you know who they are. They set your chair out and prayed for you as they set your chair out. That's a kingdom investment. Seems small, seems silly to give up. And let me tell you, it takes about 2 hours for one person to set up all these chairs. It takes a while. These blue puffies, they're nice to sit in, hard to set up. It's kingdom investment. My point is, you have something that you have to offer or to invest in the kingdom. So no one here is worthless. The third thing is this. Investment is risky, but multiplication doesn't happen without it. We will not multiply in our faith. You will not multiply in your trust and belief in Jesus. We will not multiply as a church. We will not multiply as a people. His kingdom will not multiply without people who are willing to say, let's go. I know it's going to be scary. We may die, but let's go. I'm down for that. There's Matthew chapter 24, 44, the last of that chapter. It says, you must also be ready all the time, for the Son of Man will come when the least expected. The master will come back and see what you have done with what he has entrusted you with. And that used to scare me. But I focus on verse 29 of that passage that we just read. It says, to those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have abundance. I'm kind of a glass half full kind of a guy. I like to look at that piece. Let's focus on what we can do together. Let's invest together, and we will. God will. There'll be so many blessings around here. People will be saved. Lives will be healed. Marriages will be saved. It'll be awesome. It still is. God is doing some of those things already. So my goal is this. What's the goal for today? My goal for today in this message is for you to begin making some kind of investment in the kingdom. We're getting closer to retirement age. I look at my 401k and I'm like, man, I wish I would have invested more when I was younger. And then sometimes I wonder if we're not going to be that way when we get down to the end of our life and we're facing God in the face and we go, man, I wish I would have invested a little bit riskier. I wish I'd have had a little bit of a riskier approach to my investing in the kingdom as I did as my 401k. And I think when we get into our lives, Jesus comes back. And so Jesus tells us again in Matthew chapter 6, don't store up treasures here on earth where moth eat them and rust destroy them, where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven where moths and rust cannot destroy and thieves do not break in and steal. For wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will be also. Are we investing? Are we storing up treasures here on earth? And so just in closing, and Jim's going to come up and wrap us up here in a minute, but in closing, I just kind of want to give you a little bit of insight from your lead pastor on how Salem Grace is doing this. We're taking this serious as a church too. Like we believe that we can no longer just sit and allow things not to happen around this place, so we're investing. We're investing some of your hard-earned tithe and money, and I think it's only fair that I share a little bit where that goes. And so here's what we're doing. We invested in the brand. We kind of rolled that out last week. We want a brand that represents who we are, that represents our core value, that connects well with our culture. We invested in that. We're investing heavily in children's programming and leadership because I believe that Satan is attacking our families, young families especially, and our kids. And so you're going to see a ton of investment in our kids area, in youth area in this church. We are investing heavily in your children. That's why there's a back to school bash today. We're trying to think of everything in every way possible. We're investing in staff. Cheryl, we recently brought Cheryl and Ashley on staff, and I know you know that help in our kids space. That's part of the investment, is in staff that will multiply our mission and teach our kids and point them in the right direction. But here's the thing. Did you know that in the month of July only, in this place, Cheryl was looking at some of the numbers because our kids check in. We check your kids in. There were 230 kids that checked into our children's program just in the month of July. Those are different kids. Those are not the same kids. 230 kids have walked in and out of these doors, and we're going to invest in them. We're going to see to it that they grow up knowing who Jesus is. Because we believe that's an investment in the kingdom that's going to reap rewards. Youth Loop, Crave's getting ready to kick off. We've got a ton of volunteers that have already stepped up and said, hey, we're going to help this year pour into our high school students and our junior high students. Because the world and culture and social media and their phones and everything else is pouring into them. We're going to invest heavily in them. Just FYI. And then we're going to continue to invest in staff and women's and families. We're going to invest in men. I read another statistic this week that was interesting. God is doing something in the heart and lives of our men in our church, and I'm here for it all day long. I love it. I love what God is doing in men and challenging them to lead their families into a relationship with Jesus Christ. Did you know that there is listen to this statistic, it's crazy. There is a 93% chance that a man's family will follow him into a relationship with Jesus if the man leads first. Did you know that? 93%. While still effective, it's much lower rate when the mother or the child is the first to come to Christ. Men, we have a responsibility to lead our families to Jesus. And we're going to invest in our men. Man Camp is coming this fall. You're going to begin to see about it. You're going to begin to hear about it. It's going to be fun. We're going to do manly things. We're going to shave each other. I don't know. Maybe not that. No, we're gonna do some fun stuff. There's Man Camp coming up, and we're going to pour into our men. We're going to invest in our men. It's going to be a good time. We've got a place figured out. You're going to hear more about it. I just wanted to kind of bait you a little bit on that. Man Camp. Be listening for Man Camp, man. It's going to be a good time. You're going to want to be part of that. And so we're going to invest in this place, too, lastly, in our building and in our structures here. We want to create environments that are welcoming. We want to honor what people have done in the past to get it to this point. But quite honestly, we're running out of room. Not maybe necessarily in this room, but our kids are popped off. Y'all have had a lot of children, and we appreciate it. But we are going to continue to invest in this place. It's going to take sacrifice. And quite honestly, when I look at what we have planned, it scares me to death. Like, part of me gets the 10 people that came back and said, yeah, I don't know if we can do that. Because honestly, I don't know we can do what we're planning to do. It scares me a little. But here's the thing. I'm saying, let's go. Let's wade into it. See what God has in store for us. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Make an investment for the kingdom. Risk something for the kingdom this week. I don't know if that's in your finances. Maybe it's a relationship that needs some attention. Maybe it's an invitation. Maybe it's start serving. Maybe say yes to something that you've said no to over and over and over and over again. Maybe to listen to that voice and realize that's not AI. That is our intelligent creator prompting you to do something that he wants you to do that sounds absolutely crazy. Let's go and multiply his kingdom. And if we do, I think the master will be pleased and will bless this church and all of us accordingly. So my challenge is simple this week before Jim comes is just let's stop talking and let's go. You ready? Jim.
You guys know it doesn't take much to get me excited, but I'm like, let's go! Aren't you? I'm fired up. One thing I've learned about my relationship with Pastor is he can get me going. He really can. He probably wants to work with Jennifer. There's a project at home I need to get going on, and he can help her get me there. Anyway, I'm excited. Aren't you excited? I mean, this is awesome what God's doing in our church. Yes. Man, I'm looking forward to what God's going to do. A couple things that we want to share with you before we end the service. First of all, we want to remind you to continue to give as you all do, and you're faithful. Like what we're doing today, it's because of your generosity and your giving to our church. As you give to God, we're seeing the benefits of how He is growing His kingdom here. So just know that. Also, I got to do this. If you would like to be on a chair setup team, let me know. We got to use that moment, right? If you would like to be, because I feel like God's called several of you. And if you don't know who you are, I'll point you out later. We'll just have that discussion. Let me know today. I'll be around, okay? Want to throw that out there. Also want to let you know, what's next week? What are we doing next week? That's right, 2 services. Thank you for that, 9 and 10:30, okay? Listen, you can come to both. That'll be great. It'll probably look the same, but you can choose 9 or 10:30. That's starting next Sunday. Also want to let you know about today. We have plenty of food. We're about to serve lunch in the fellowship hall. That's where you can find the food. Even if you don't have kids, right? Even if you don't have kids here, you're invited to stay, to fellowship, just hang out with everybody. And you can be indoors as well. We got plenty of room over there. We'd love for you to just hang out. So just know that, all right? And I have been instructed and asked to pray for the food. So this is a double prayer. I don't know if you've ever done a double prayer before. God has 2 big ears. He can hear 2 prayers at one time. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pray for the food, and we're going to pray to close. Join me. Father, thank you for Joshua saying, let's go. And that's what you're calling Salem Grace to do as well. Let's go. Your word says that hell cannot prevail against what you are doing. And Father, we're in attack mode right now because we serve a big God. So thank you for what you are doing. Thank you for today, a special day for us to celebrate with our kids and their families. And so now, Father, we just pray that you'll bless this food, bless the remainder of this day. We ask all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. You guys have a great week.